Hey guys, so today I am going to be doing a spoiler-free review of 6 Crimson Cranes by Elizabeth Lim. I got this book from NetGalley before it came out, and then I got this gorgeous edition from Fairy Loot in my June box, July box. One of the boxes, I think it was July. But look, it's got these gorgeous sprayed edges. It's a play on the UK cover, which I really, really love. I love both covers. And then it's just fantastic. And then it's got under art, like, so good. And honestly, the insides match the outsides. I loved this book. I thought it was so good. And I'm now very excited for book 2 to come out. And I need to talk about it. So, 6 Crimson Cranes is an Asian-inspired fantasy story, and it is very, like, fairy tale-esque, like a fairy tale retelling, and I absolutely loved it. I believe it is set in the same world as her other book, which is Spin the Dawn, but it's not related to it. At least not that I know. I have not read Spin the Dawn yet, but I do have it on my TBR to eventually read, but you don't have to have read that to read this. So I read this first. I will eventually read Spin the Dawn, but I've heard that it's set in the same world, but it's not connected in any way that I know of. We are following Shiori, who is a princess in this like kingdom, and she has these like 6 older brothers. And she is the youngest of all of them, and she's the only girl. Well, she is being raised by her dad, who is the emperor, and her stepmom, because her mother died, you know, when she was very, very, very young. Like, she has very few memories of her actual mother, and her stepmom is basically the only parent that she's ever known as far as like a maternal figure. And it starts out when they are older, but she is like, I think like 17-ish. In this book. I'm not 100% sure. I don't fully remember her age. Sorry. But she's like 17, and then she has been kind of like betrothed to this like prince or like lord of another like kind of like kingdom in this world, and she doesn't really know him. They don't really know each other. She doesn't really want to get married, but it's kind of like her duty and she has to. But she's kind of rebellious in that, and in this world as well, like, magic is gone, right? Like, in this kingdom, there is no magic. And that is because there's these, like, evil beings. And if there's magic in the world, then these evil beings will kind of get free and, like, destroy the world. So, like, magic is a no-no, right? But come to find out, our girl, she's got some magic in her. And she doesn't really know how to control it or what it does or what it is. And at some point at the beginning of the story, she kind of like lets her magic slip, and her stepmom finds out, and she curses her brothers to turn into cranes, puts a bowl on Shiori's head so it's like down to here so you can't see who she is. And that kind of like sequesters her magic, because this certain type of wood contains magic and like won't let you perform it. And then she's like kind of cast out, right? So everybody in this kingdom thinks that like these princes and the princess have been like either killed or kidnapped, and it kind of sits it into like some upheaval. And we're basically following Shiori as she tries to like break this curse and, you know, fight back against her stepmother and figure out what's going on, turn her brothers back into humans, not cranes. And then part of this curse is that she cannot speak. If she is to speak, for every word she says, her brothers will die. So for one word, one brother dies. If she speaks, you know, 6 words, all her brothers will die. So it's kind of like it's a pretty big deal. So she's mute this entire book. Like, we get her thoughts in her head, but she can't talk to nobody. Like, she can't say, I'm the princess that's been cursed and da 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 da, because then she doesn't want her brothers to die. So we are following her as she tries to kind of figure things out and break this curse. This book was a lot of fun. I read it super quick, And I think there's a lot of pros to this book. There's a couple cons, and we're going to talk about those because you know I always talk about my pros and cons. But mostly pros when it comes to this one. Highly recommend it. I gave this book, I think, 4 stars on Goodreads, so definitely check it out. We're going to start out with the pros, and my first pro for this book is that it's very whimsical, and it's very much reads like a fairy tale. And I don't think that will be for everyone, but for me, I really enjoyed that like soft magic, fairy tale-esque kind of suspend your disbelief aspect of this story. It was just so well written, so well done, and it was just this like really cool feeling of whimsy and magic, and I really, really loved that. But that could also be a con. So one of my cons is also that it's a fairy tale retelling, and that's not gonna be for everybody because of the way it's like a softer magic system, and it's very, you know, whimsical, and it's very much just like the magic is there and it's a thing, but it's never like explained in detail. It's definitely not like a Sanderson level of hard magic, like these are your rules and this is what it is. It's very much just like you go with it. You just kind of roll with it. Like the thing with the bowl on her head, like that kind of bothered me a little bit because it's like, didn't really make sense, but like it's a fairy tale and stuff like that happens in fairy tales, and you know, everybody thinks it's really weird that she's got this bowl on her head, and they think she's like really dumb, and like they don't know she's the princess. Yeah, so that could be a con for some people, but so that's kind of lands on my pros and my cons list. Another pro is the character relationships in this book. Shiori's relationship with her brothers, her relationship with, sounds really weird, this paper crane that she made that's imbued with magic and like has life and personality, and she can actually speak with it through just her thoughts. So that kind of gives you a level of being able to see her thoughts without her speaking. So I really like how they did that. But like the relationships that develop between her and the other characters, I think are really well done. That sibling relationship is really well done, where, you know, there's rivalry. There's definitely some sibling rivalry. They don't always get along, but you can tell they really care and love each other. So, I mean, that's how having a sibling is, isn't it? It's like you don't always get along. You don't always like each other, but you always love each other. Another, like, I guess kind of con for this would be the romance. While I really liked it, I did find it a little and a little predictable, but I still really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the love interest. I thought that he was just really great and really sweet, but there were aspects of it where it was like, really, bro? Like, you could have said something earlier, or you could have done something, or like, why are we getting this like now? But all in all, I liked the romance, but it was just a little predictable for me. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but the romance was also just like not a super main focus of the book, so I can kind of let that slide because like it's not a romance book, but there is a good romance in it. I just thought it could have been elevated just a little bit. Also, a pro, we've got a tiny dragon. Need I say more? There's a tiny dragon and he can turn into a person, and I think he's gonna be more of a character in book 2 from what it seems. But I just enjoyed the little interactions we get with this tiny dragon. Like, he was just so fun. Again, the soft magic system is not for everybody. This fairy tale retelling soft magic is definitely not something that I know a lot of people love, but I thought was really enjoyable. So if you don't mind a soft magic, then this might be for you. Like I said, we don't get a whole lot of explanation and rules and things like that as to how the magic works, but it's there and you just kind of have to accept it. There was also a lot of like really cool twists that I feel like were not predictable. I feel like the twists in this book were really, really well done. There were some things that I was like, oh, that's cool. Wasn't expecting that. So I really enjoyed that because I like being surprised. I like fresh takes on tropes. I like how this was done and it's like, oh, that's cool. Didn't expect that. Like, there's one character that you're like, you expect something, but not to the level of what actually happened. And then also, I thought it was a really cool take on the evil stepmother kind of trope, like, which is really a common trope in, I feel like, fairy tale retellings, is like the evil stepmother. And I felt like it was a really fresh way of doing it, a really interesting way of doing the evil stepmother trope. And I actually really liked how that played out at the end of the book. Like, the whole like evil stepmother and like getting her backstory and stuff like that, I thought was really well done. And I really like how it's set up for book 2. Like, it wasn't like a cliffhanger ending, but it was definitely a setup for book 2, and it makes me excited to read it, but not like, oh my god, I need it now because cliffhanger, what happened? I don't know. So I like when books do that. I like when they leave me just enough to be excited for book 2, but not so much that I'm like racking my brain where I'm like, what happened? So I really appreciated that in this book. All in all, I enjoyed the heck out of this. I'm really glad that I got it from NetGalley, and then I'm really happy that I got the really pretty edition from Fairy Loot. I really think this is just a really good book, and I would like to see more people read it. I know it was on a lot of people's like most anticipated list, so I'm really curious to see what other people have thought about it, if they've read it yet. And if you plan to read it, let me know, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well. All right, well, my name is Jessie, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.